Welcome to a new tutorial, part of the Django blog series. In the series, we're trying to show you how easy it is to attach Django to pretty much any blog that you've found that's built with Bootstrap or some other kind of HTML framework. And so if you've been following along, then so far what we've been doing is we've been translating a blog website that was built with HTML to be now handled with Django as a backend. And if you'd like to follow along, you can just go to our GitHub Dream blog repository, and here you can clone or download the source code, and you can reset back to the latest commit, which at this time is this post list view finished commit. So you can just reset back to this commit and you will be at the starting point of which we are starting this video right now. So once you've got everything in your editor set up, then let's get started. So right now, this is what the project looks like. We've got this home page, which is kind of just demonstrating what this project is about. It's a blog. And then you can click on blog, which shows you a list of the posts with a nice little sidebar. And in this one, what we're going to do is now move on to the post, which is a unique instance of a post. If I actually click on one of these, this is what it would look like. You've got the thumbnail, the categories, the title, and the rest of the post with some comments as well. So what we're going to be doing is building this entire page, but instead using Django to help us do that. So let's go back to the code. We're going to open up the templates and let's go to post.html. This is what it looks like. And again, we're going to want to refactor this to only have the code that we actually really need. A lot of what's inside here, for example, in this post body, a lot of this is actually just custom HTML. So this stuff here, this is not actually what we want to use because of course every post is going to be different. So we're not going to copy every post to look exactly the same. Instead, what we're going to do is use a fancy editor that will allow you to actually create posts that can end up looking like this. Maybe not exactly like this, but it'll demonstrate the concept. So what we're going to do is actually get rid of everything above there, so such as the title, author, timestamp, and all that we've seen before. That's going to be up top here, whereas this is going to be rendered using our editor, and I'm going to show you that in a minute. And that editor that we're going to be using is called TinyMCE. So if we search for that, we get this software which is called TinyMCE. This is what it is, and if we just go to their website, you can see a little bit more about it. And this is basically just a, as it says, a rich text editing platform. So basically it allows you to embed a text editor into your website that will allow you to create content that looks such as something like this, where it's really nice and fancy. You can embed images whenever you want, comments, code, really a whole bunch of fancy stuff. And it's also free. There are some other options that are premium that you can pay for, but we're going to be using the free version of this. And so you can play around and look at some of the links that they have here, such as developers and the products that they have. And you can go ahead and create an account if you'd like to do that. But what I'm going to do is actually search for something specific, which is a tutorial showing how you can actually implement this with Django. And what we're going to do is just search for TinyMCE Django tutorial. And so we're going to just click on this first link here, which is how to set up TinyMCE in Django, which is on fosstack.com. And I'm not really going to run through this in depth because you can read through this yourself and you'll see that this is pretty much explaining it in the simplest way possible. So I'm not going to defeat the whole tutorial by going through this. So basically you just want to install what this package is, Django TinyMCE Lite. You'll add the installed app, URL patterns. This is the standard thing for installing an app. And then you've got this default configuration, which is basically just a dictionary of properties that you can define in your settings. So we're going to add that into settings. And then the really important thing here is that from the TinyMCE package, you have this HTML field, which is what you're going to use to basically reference the kind of rich text editor display and the form itself. So you just have to specify that as the type of model. And in this example, we're using content as the field to hold that. And that's pretty much it. Then they just go on to explain how to use a form, and it's really, really simple. You basically don't even need to do that much. So a really great package here. I suggest you actually go through it and just check it out, and I'm going to go and add all these things into the project, but everything down from here, the Django file browser, I'm not going to be adding any of that stuff in. I'm just stopping here at this post detail template. So go through this, check it out, and we're going to add this into the project and continue from there. Right, so now I've gone and added all of those settings into the project, and I'm just going to run through that quickly. Here you've got the TinyMCE default configuration, everything that you saw in the blog post. And then up top, you've got the TinyMCE package name inside the installed apps. I've also installed it now as well. You've also got the path here, and I'm just going to import include from Django URLs. So there's the path. Then in the models, I've imported the HTML field, and I've specified a content property on the post to be this HTML field. Then in the forms, this is everything that we saw inside the blog post as well. And then inside the head.html, I've got a link to the github.css file, which is referencing for the type of display, which is the exact same styling that was used in that blog post, which is for the coding. And then in the scripts, I've got the highlight.pack.js as well referenced in the static, and that's all there is. So if you want to get hold of those static files, then what you can do is just go to the blog post and scroll all the way to the bottom, and there's a link here that will take you to the GitHub repository where you can get hold of all that stuff there. And so once you've got all of that, you can just move those files into the static in env folder. You can see I've moved mine into the CSS folder there and the JS folder there as well. So with that, we can then close that off, and we can begin working here in our post.html. So what I'm going to do is actually just stop the server, and I'm going to make migrations because we've now added in that new field. And this is now saying that I need to provide either a once-off default or to quit. So what I'm going to do is just say 1, and then I'm just going to put in quotations test. Let's try that there again. So test, and there we go. Now I'm just going to say migrate. There we go. Now we can run the server. So that's the models done, settings. And what I'm going to go and open is inside the posts, we're going to go to views, because we're going to need to work in our post view, which we haven't done anything in yet. So we're already passing in the ID, so we're going to need to get that post. So we'll say post equals to, and we're going to actually import this from shortcuts. This is get object or 404, and we can use that to get the post where the ID equals to the ID, and then we can pass that into our context, and we'll just say that our post is the post, and then pass the context in over there. So now inside post.html, we actually have the post that we can work with. So this h1 would be the actual title, so this will be post.title. Let's save that. Here we've got the category, so I'm also going to loop through those. So we'll say for cat in post.categories.all. Then we'll create one each time, so we'll say end for, and you can see that we're getting a div here which has the class of category, and then you've got 2 categories there. So I'm going to actually remove that, the first one there, and we'll put the for loop inside the div so that we only render out this a tag, and then here we'll just put cat, just like that. So there we have that. Now we have the avatar, and this is going to be the same as how we've done it so far. So this will be post.author.profilepicture.url, and then we can see we've got John Doe, which is the author name. So this will be post.author.user.username. Then you've got 2 months ago, which is the time that it was created. So this will be post.timestamp, and then we'll put a filter on that and say time since, and then ago at the end of that. Then this will be post.viewCount, and this will be post.commentCount. And we should also have the thumbnail there. So let's get rid of the static URL, and this will be post.thumbnail.url. And let's check out what this looks like now. If we refresh this, There's the thumbnail, title, categories. Cool. So all of that seems to be working. And then this is where the actual post begins. And like I said, this is not something that's going to look the same every time. It's going to be different depending on what was actually put into that post. So maybe you didn't put in an image. So that's where the editor is going to come in, and I'm going to go and actually log into the admin. So let's go and do that now. And so here I'm just going to go to posts, and we'll click on the first post. And now you can see here in the content, we have this form that's being generated, and it has the word test in it because that's what we added as the default content to actually pass into this model when we had to make the migration. And you can play around with this for quite a while. And you can see there's quite a lot of stuff you can do. You can insert images, tables, you can do code, you can add YouTube videos. It's really cool. And so I'm not going to focus on creating something that looks exactly like this because, well, you really could, but I'm not going to spend the time to demonstrate that. Rather just going to get something basic here. Cool, so now I've gone and added some stuff here into the form and I've saved this. So now we can actually see it here on the post. And what we'll do is render it out here instead of this default HTML. So let's go and get rid of this here. We're just going to go and scroll down to the post body. And this is all the HTML that's rendering out all of this stuff. So let's go and get rid of that div there. And actually everything inside of post body will keep the actual div. And then here we'll just say post.content. And when we want to render it, all we need to do is just pass in a template tag there and just call safe, just like that. Now if we come back, let's refresh this. And we can see that some stuff is being rendered out. Obviously there's a little bit of a styling issue. And what we can do just to fix this very simply is just make sure that the width of any image inside our div body here, our post body, is going to have a width of 100%. So we'll just go to the top here and we'll just create a style tag. And what I'm going to do is just go and get this post body class. And what I'll do is say .post body and then say img. Then here I'm going to say width is 100%. Then if we come back, now you can see it's being styled correctly and it's got a width of 100%, so it's staying within that column. And even though it is a little bit squished, that's fine. This is something that you could communicate to users and just say that they should use images of a certain width. But nonetheless, what you can see is that the content itself is actually being rendered out, and that's pretty cool. You can even see you've got this code that's showing, and it's got a little background that's colored, and it's got some syntax highlighting. So that's pretty cool. And so what we can do now is we can look at this kind of previous post, next post logic. And I'm not going to look at the template tags because, as I said, it's kind of the same thing as the categories. So you can feel free to implement that kind of logic the same way as you would the categories. So what we're going to do now is think about some kind of logic where we have a previous post and a next post. And there's two ways we could do this. We could either have some kind of query set where we're ordering them in some way, and maybe what you're doing is you're getting them by category. So if you were ordering them by time, maybe the previous post was the post that was posted before this, as in terms of its time that it was posted at, and then the same kind of logic for the next post. Or we could go to the actual post model and then link two posts to it to say this is the previous post for this post and this is the next post for this post. Now by doing it that way, it's one, a little bit simpler because all we need to do is just specify two fields on the model, which is the previous post and the next post, which is just a foreign key to another post model. And we could also set that to null so that maybe you don't want there to be a previous or next post for some specific post. And that also saves us the time in having to create some special query sets. So I'm just going to add a field on the model itself. So we'll go to post models, and here we'll just say previous post, which is going to be models.foreignkey, and this is going to be on self. But we don't pass self just like that, we pass it inside these quotations, and then we say on delete equals to models.setNull. because if it was cascade, then that would mean if we deleted the model that's related to this as the previous post, then it would delete this post as well, and that's not what we want. So we're just going to say blank equals true and null equals true as well, and then we'll just copy that there, and this will be the next post, which is the exact same thing, but because they're the same kind of foreign key, we need to specify a related name which will differentiate them, and this will be the previous post, and then we'll add related name equal to next post, just like that. So now we have the previous post and we have the next post. But now, because we have a previous post and next post that are the same kind of foreign key, we need to specify a related name which will differentiate between those two. So I'm just going to say this is previous, and then we'll say that this related name is equal to next, just like that. Now we can come and make migrations. So we'll say manage.py, make migrations. Now we can say migrate. There we go. So now when we create the post, we can specify a previous post and a next post if we want to. And now in the post.html logic, when we come down here, we've got the next and previous. So here's previous post, here's next post. So what we'll do is we'll just add some if statements, and we'll say if post dot previous post, because that is the field there. And let's actually just get the a tag, which is over there. So here's an anchor tag for previous post, text, and etc. So we'll just cut that out there and say if post.previous post, then we will render all of that stuff out. And that anchor tag ends over there, and there's the second one, which also ends like that. And then we'll just say end if, and then the same logic here, we'll say if post dot next post, then we will render this one out, and we'll say end if. And let's actually just go below here and say post dot previous post, and let's just come back and see what this looks like. So now we don't get those rendered out at all because this post doesn't have a previous or next post. So we'll just come over here, let's refresh this. We'll say the previous post is nothing and the next post is the second post, and save that. Let's come back here. Now we've got next post, which is this one here, and what we can do is then reference the fields off of that post model. So this would be post dot previous post dot get absolute URL, and the previous post would stay there, and this would be the title of that post. So this would be post dot previous post dot title, and then the same thing here, this would be the post dot next post dot get absolute URL, and the same thing for the title there. We can get rid of that and say this is the next post dot title. Cool. So that's that. Let's refresh this here. Cool. Now you get next post is, this is the second post, and if you click on that, then it takes you to that post. And let's actually go to the second post, and we'll say the previous post is the first post, the next post is the third post. Save that, come back, and now you've got this is the first post and this is the third post, and we can navigate between them, which is pretty cool. So now you've got those links working. Now what we need to finish off is the comments over here and the sidebar, but the sidebar we've actually handled in the previous video. So let's go and add that in now. So we can close off models there, and we can take a look at the blog.html, and here we can see we've got the aside, which has got the search, and it's got the latest posts, and it's got the categories. And what we're going to do is actually cut this aside out, and we're going to put it in its own file. So let's go and say this is the sidebar.html, and we're going to go there, and let's just, and then we will cut that out and we'll paste it all over there, and we can just tab that in. Cool, so there's the aside, and then here we will include it, and we're going to reference it as the sidebar.html, but we're going to need to specify the context variables that are necessary for this to actually be rendered, so such as most recent and such as the category count, which is that specific query set that we created. So we're going to need to pass that in. The search bar we don't need to actually worry about because the URL is the same no matter which page we're on. So basically what we need to do is we need to say with and then pass in most recent, which is the variable that we're using in this file, and we were using it here as most recent. And then the category count, we'll also say category count equals category count. That's specifically for the blog.html. So if we were to come back here, then you can see it still looks exactly the same. Now when we go to a post, all we need to do is just take that sidebar, and we'll just scroll down. So here is the aside. We can close that, get rid of it, and then here we'll just actually copy it from blog. So we'll just copy that line. So we're including sidebar, and the most recent, I'm going to name it the exact same variables, and we'll just get them in the view itself. So let's go to view, and here we have most recent. So we'll just pass that in over there, and then category count we'll pass in over there as well, and then we'll just grab those like that. And we don't need page request variable. Cool. So now if we come back and let's click on a post, now you can see that our sidebar is rendering the exact same way as it was for our post list, which is really cool because we didn't have to go and type this all out again. And so now all we need to do is actually render out these comments and think about a way that we're going to handle this. Now the way that comments are being rendered out here, we can see that there's no real kind of nesting going on, meaning each comment is a comment on the actual post. There doesn't seem to be a way that you can reply to a specific comment. And although that is quite nice, we're just going to stick with the way that the template is designed right now. However, comments can actually get quite complicated in that you can reference specific users and comment directly on specific comments, but we'll just stick to the basics of creating a basic comment where you can just reply on the actual post itself. So what we're going to do is need to create some kind of model that will hold that data. And if we take a look, we can see that it's the username of the person who commented, their actual profile picture, the time or date that they actually commented on the post, and then the comment itself. So 4 pieces of information. So that's all we need to actually store in the model itself. Then we have this form here which will actually allow them to comment, and I'm not going to pass in an email address because that's just my own belief that it's not necessary to pass in an email address just to comment on the post. So we're only going to need to pass in a name, which we actually don't need to pass in a name because if the user's logged in, then they would be able to comment, and their username is already stored, so they wouldn't need to pass in their name already. It makes sense to pass in the name if they're anonymous, but then again, do we want anonymous people to actually comment? And again, that's my own take, is that maybe we don't, so we just won't render out the form, and instead we will either make the view itself login required, or we will just display something that says login to comment, which is also fine. So that basically means that the form itself will only have this type your comment field, which will just be a text field. So let's get going on that. What we can do is we'll go to the post models, and I'm just going to create the model here instead of creating an entire app for this. So what we'll do is just say this is the class called comment, which will come from models.model. We're going to give it a user, which is the same thing as what we did for the author. So one-to-one field with the user. We're going to give it a timestamp, which is going to be models.datetime field, and we're going to say auto now add equal to true. We're going to say that the actual content is going to be a text field, and that's all we need. We've got the user, timestamp, and the actual comment itself. So we'll just say define string of self, and then just say return self.user.username. And we're actually missing one more thing, which is extremely important, and that's the post itself. We need to know which post the comment was actually on. So what we'll do is just bring this above the post and we'll paste it there. And then we'll just say that the post equals to models.foreign key. This will be on the post, and we'll say on delete equals to models.cascade, because if this post is deleted, then we'll just say the comment is deleted as well. And actually we're referencing post first, so we'll put comment at the bottom. Cool. So now let's just bring it into the admin here. So we'll bring comment and then just copy paste one of those, register comment there, and then we'll go to the forms because we need to create a comment form. So we'll say class comment form, which we'll just say comes from the model form. And that means that all we need to do is just specify the class meta, and in this case the model itself is the comment, which we just need to import here. And fields is going to have to exclude the user and the timestamp and the post, so all we need is content, just like that. And then we can use this in our post view that we have here. So we're going to import this from our forms. So we'll say from.forms import comment form. And then here all we'll do is just say that the form equals to the comment form, where it's a request.post or none. And then we'll just say if the request.method equals to a post request, then we'll say if form.is valid, to check if that was actually a valid request. Then we'll just say form.save, because this is a model form, so we're just taking the form instance and saving it, and that will basically create the comment. But we need to pass in specific values, not the timestamp, because we've said auto now add equal true. So we need to pass the post and the user to that. So we'll need to say form.instance.user equals to request.user, and then form.instance.post equals to post, which we got here, this object. Then we can say form.save. And so we can just go and close models and forms, and we can close sidebar as well. Then here with this form, we're going to render our form inside that. So let's replace action with dot, and we're going to say method equals to post, and then we'll just add a CSRF token, and then we will add our form, which we need to pass into our context here. So this is form, which is our form here. So we're going to render out our form, and we can actually do it inside the row itself. So then the username we don't need to get, we don't need the email. So all we've actually got is the comment itself. So here it says type your comment, and then we've got the submit button, which already has a type of submit. And what we can actually do is just take the form and we will put it over there. Let's just see. So this has a class of form control. So what we could do is we could go into our forms, and here we can say that our content equals to forms.text area, and then say our attributes equals to a dictionary, where we will have the class as form control, and that will basically allow us to create the text area that has a class of form control, and we can remove that there. And if we save that, let's come back and refresh this. Let's just see if something's not working. And okay, so we need to make sure this is a tuple, so let's do that, and let's just refresh the server there. Cool. Let's reload, scroll down, and so this doesn't look to be coming out the right way. So if we just go and get the text area back and just refresh that there, so this is what it's meant to look like. So what we'll do is just come into the form and we'll add some more properties here. Let's say that the placeholder is the same thing here, which is type your comment. And I'm realizing why this isn't rendering correctly. It's because text area is actually a widget, so that means we need to wrap this inside a character field and specify the widget as that text area like that. So now if we come back and refresh this and come back, now we can see it looks pretty much exactly the same. It's just got a little bit more height to the actual area itself, so we can specify that as well. So let's do that now. We can just come in here and I'm going to set the rows to be 4, and let's see what that does to it. And that's more or less what it looks like now. So we can go ahead and get rid of the actual text area. Let's refresh this. And cool, this is actually looking a lot better. So now we've actually got the form rendering out, and now we can actually render out the comments. So let's go back to the code. We'll get rid of the forms.py there. And if we scroll up a little bit here, so we've got leave a reply, and what I'm actually going to do is I'm just going to add logic here. So we'll say if request.user.is authenticated. So if they are authenticated, then we will show this here. And so this will basically just ensure that if the user is authenticated, then they can actually comment on the post. Now what we can do is we can see where these comments are starting, and we can see there's the same comment div 3 times. So I'm going to get rid of 2 of them, and what we'll do is loop through the comments that belong to this post. So if we go back to the model, we've specified the foreign key on the post, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to specify a property here on the post which will get all of the comments related to that post. So we'll just make this a property, and we'll say define comments of self, and we're going to say return self.comments.all. And here on the post, we can say that the related name is equal to comments, like that. So if we actually just add a comment there and just add a comma over there, now we can just make migrations and we can run the server again. So basically the related name is allowing us to call this off of the post model. So we can say post.comments and then say .all, and then here in the post we can then loop through that. So we'll say for comment in post.comments, and then here we have that div which we can end for there. Then this here will be the comment.user.username, and then this is the date that it was created, so this will be comment.timestamp, and we'll also say time since, and then say ago, like that. And then this is the actual comment, so we'll just get rid of that and make this comment.content. And so if we take a look at what this looks like and refresh this, okay, we've got related manager object does not exist, and that's because we're doing a little bit of a loop here. So let's say this is get comments, and if we do this now, post.get comments, refresh this here, scroll down, cool. So we don't obviously have any comments for this, so let's just go and we'll create a comment now just here in the admin, say the user is admin, say this is a comment, and say the post is the first post. Now if we refresh this, there you have it, there's the first comment there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to check if this user has an author associated with it, because we have this author that has the profile picture, and so if they are an author, then we'll show the profile picture, otherwise we'll just show this generic image here. So let's just display this a little bit nicer. And so what we'll do is we'll say if request.user.author, then we'll say end if, and we'll say else in there as well, and copy that in there. So If they are an author, then we're going to render out the request.user, and this isn't meant to be request.user, this is meant to be the comment.user. So if the comment user is an author, then we're going to say comment.user.author.profilepicture.url, otherwise show the static URL. So let's refresh that. There we go. So because this user admin is an author, then we see the profile picture being displayed there. And let's go and test out the form. So we'll say this is the second post and click submit. And it says unique constraint failed. And this is because if we go back here to the model, we specified a 1-to-1 field. So this is actually meant to be a foreign key. So let's actually make that migration again and say migrate, run the server, come back, and we'll just refresh the page. So now let's say this is another comment and say submit, scroll down, and there we go. This is another comment, and this is a comment. There we go. And what we can actually do is order them. So what we'll do is just come back here to this get comments, and we'll say dot order by, and then say negative timestamp. So that will then reverse it so that displays them in terms of the most recent comment first. And we can actually go back to post.html. Here we have post comments, which has this 3 here. So this can be the post.getComments.comments.count, and that should work as well. So let's refresh this, and then we have 2, and we'll just wrap that inside these brackets, just like how it looked, and refresh that, and there we go. Cool. So now we have our comments working. And what we can do just to end this off here is just say return a redirect to post, and let's just make sure we have the right URL. So we'll just go here. This is post detail. So post dash detail, and then we'll set the keyword arguments where the ID is self.id. So that means we can come back here and refresh this, and we'll say this is the last comment, refresh this, and okay, redirect is not defined. So we'll just import that here from shortcuts and refresh that there. Now it says self is not defined, that's not self.id, and yes, that is meant to be post.id. Let's try it one more time. And okay, so we didn't save that, so that's why it didn't work there. And okay, we have a lot of comments now, so let's just go and get rid of some of them here, and let's try this again. Say last one now, submit this. Okay, and we are meant to put reverse around all of that, so let's just get it imported there, reverse, and now we can try this again. We have some more comments that we can delete, so we'll just delete these ones, refresh this here, another one, submit the comment, come back down, and there we go. Cool. So now that is all working, we've managed to implement our own kind of editor, which is using TinyMCE to actually display a really rich and detailed post, and not just something that has an image and some text. You can actually create something pretty cool like this. We've seen how to add the sidebar without actually doing any more work, and we've got the comments working with everything styled how it was in the beginning. So that's really cool. So if you've enjoyed this video, leave a comment down below, let us know what you've thought. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.